Okay, I want to talk about a couple things real fast. Um, I got some questions about a couple of things I'm going to answer real quick. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to close some stuff here. I got too many things open at once. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple of questions real fast. I've had a few people ask questions like via message about um, like seeing clients after the class. So hopefully, um, people that aren't here watch the recording, and I'll put this in a message as well. We've talked about it a couple of times. Um, if you're going to continue to see clients while you wait for your license, your associate license, you'll need to take the extended practicum class, which is um, I actually teach it, and all you do is sign up for it, see clients, and then some people, when they get their license, they actually drop the class. I mean, it's not a, you've already graduated. So what that does is allow you to have the Amberton umbrella kind of cover you too while you see clients. You do have to have supervision while you do that. What most people do is they've actually also found their site a lot of the times. And so they just see clients at the site they're going to be at to gather their hours. But you will need to do that. There are people that stop seeing clients while they wait for their associate license too, which is fine. You can do that as well. You wouldn't have to take the class or do anything. You just wait. Um, and so I wanted to talk about that real fast. We did because I did have quite a few people send me a message about it. So um, I wanted to mention that. And we've had quite a few people, I think, that have either already taken the exam or taking it fairly soon now. Some of you guys have already taken it, right? I think, and passed it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I can't see everyone. I can see Sheila and Mark, so I'm I'm hoping other people are shaking their heads. So I know other people have taken it, so that's good. Um, the one thing I was going to ask too, before I go too much farther, anyone here today, uh, is there anyone that's like concerned about their hours, like not getting enough, like you're not going to get your hours? Let me ask that before we go too much farther.
MFT here, family hours.
Yeah, yeah, you
We
got another,
struggle.
yeah, you got another whole semester to go too. So how many hours do you have right now?
About 70, just direct 70 something, 75.
Direct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How
So
many of
she,
those are those relationship hours?
some of them, yes. So,
Okay.
but I I'm at the Rockwall Detention Center, so it's they talk about families all the time. So, and I'm struggling with the family hours.
Okay. The good news is you have another practicum. That's the good news to get
Yes.
the hours that you need. Um, it sounds like, yeah, that might not be the best place to try to get them just because of it's mostly individual. It sounds like mostly individual
Yeah.
hours,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Um, okay. How many, do you know how many are relational? Because I think that 50 have to be relational. I think you have to have half of the 100 have to be
Yes.
relational.
Yep. So
If you had, if do you know how many are relational by any chance?
most of them, yes, with most of them relation. They talk about their families all the time. Is it your question about their? That's
Yeah,
so. It's they all like yes, talk about their families, family members, most of the time. So
but the other family member has to be in the session. too.
No, they have like they have meetings there, but we're not allowed to be there. So their parents they come, or their like spouses they come to see them, or children's like it's our children. So
But in the session, there's just
just
one.
only one, yeah, one, yes. And
Okay.
it's group therapy doesn't count as a family.
Right.
So
And if the individual's there without their family member, it doesn't count either.
okay.
They have to be with you in the session, like
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a parent or a partner, or they both
Mm-hmm.
have to be, or they would all have to be there. And you're right, group doesn't count.
So that's
Yeah. So okay. Do you, yeah, this is the hard part about the relational hours. Um, do you just have the one site, or you just at the
launch
detention center?
title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. One thing you might think about is trying to find another practice somewhere around you where you could at least maybe get some um,
Yeah.
relationship hours, like a private practice or another bigger group.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you live?
I'm close to Denton, between Denton and Louisville.
Okay. I'm gonna give you a couple of names of places.
Mm-hmm.
One is called Olive. Hang on, let me make sure I'm telling you right. I've got a couple of friends up there. It's like, sorry, I want to make sure I'm telling you right. Well, my friend had there's a place, I think she's in Denton. Think, I think she's taking the place is called Steady Heart Counseling. The owner's name is Brittany Brummett. Let me put the link in
Thank you.
I'll put the link in here. And then there's another one in Denton. Can't remember if it's let me make sure I'm telling you the right thing. The other one's called Olive Branch Family Therapy.
Oh,
It's a
I know this branch. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good place too.
Mm-hmm.
I know the owners of both those places close to you. Those are good places to contact.
Okay.
Um, I used to know another one, but he's not in Denton anymore. I don't even know where he's at. Might be in Plano maybe, but I'm not sure. Anyway, those would be two places of contact
Thank you
just to
so much.
see, you could probably start both of those places probably would definitely have couples that they work
Mm-hmm.
with for sure. And they've been there, like the Olive Branch has been there for
Yes.
over
It's
10 years. It's been there a long time.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be a good place. You have time, you still have time. So,
Yeah.
um, even if you could just do, you know, 3, 4, 5 a week or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
that would be
Okay.
helpful. And I believe both those places have supervised, like you would be supervised. That wouldn't be a problem either.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hmm. Yeah. Is anyone else worried about hours?
I'm not worried about hours, but I have a question about the ratio.
Okay.
Like, is there a specific ratio of direct to indirect?
Well, you're supposed to get 100 direct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mean for this semester or for both
No,
together?
total.
Total. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So part of the 300, 100 is direct contact, right? And so when you move forward, then part of your 3,000, 1,500 is direct when you're working on your associate license.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And if you're an MFT, part of the 50 of the 100 has to be relational, which means more than one person in the room. So I think we only have 2 MFT folks this time, I think. Okay.
So this is our last week to complete hours, correct?
Now, I mean, technically you have until the week of, well, this semester ends on the 22nd, I think. Is that right? Technically you have till the 22nd.
But don't we have to turn in the paperwork on the 10th?
I want the paperwork then.
Okay.
I mean, I would love for, if I put the due date later and later, then I don't want us scrambling at the end trying to get everything in. Because, well, I just don't want to do that. I used to do that and I don't want to do that. It's actually harder on you guys. Some people do go to the very end to get their hours though, and that's fine. That's fine. There's no penalty for turning something in on the 22nd versus the 10th. And some people have already turned everything in now. So there's no, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not going to lose any points or there's nothing deducted from anything. I like to get it early because I like to turn these grades in as quick as I can.
So are we emailing everything to you?
So I just put up some folders to turn things in on Moodle. That was going to be the next thing I'm going to talk about. I didn't realize I didn't put those up in the main section, but I did not. So I've put, there's 3 assignment folders. One's a reflection paper, one's for your total hours, and one's for your evaluations, your personal evaluation and your supervision evaluation. I would rather you guys turn those in on Moodle because I have gotten some emailed to me, but I have about 80 emails. It's really difficult to go through them all. And so I just don't want to miss anything. It's fine if you if you email it. It doesn't, it's fine. It's just easier if you turn it in on Moodle. But it's also helpful when you have an actual place to turn it in, which you didn't have until today. So that's my fault.
So the learning style paper, do we still have to do that?
You don't have to do it. They just ask for it. It's not
'Cause I think
like it's not required.
Okay, because I thought we did it in marriage and family too.
Probably did. Yeah, you probably did. This is what's called a capstone course. So for a lot of you, this is your last course. So they're always wanting it when we're kind of tying up. It's just part of the research. And so that you can email to me. It's fine because all I do is I just give that to the folks at QAP. So, but that's not an assignment. That's just something that they want. Okay. Any other questions?
Can I ask some questions about getting a supervisor?
Yeah, just one second.
Okay.
Any other questions about turning things in or hours or anyone worry about hours or anything like that? All right, Sheila, go for it.
I'm just ready to like call someone and I just don't know what I'm exactly supposed to be asking them. I mean, I know to be my supervisor, but are there any like specific questions that I should be asking them?
That you should ask them. Yeah. Has anyone already got their supervisor for your associate? You guys want to talk about this at all? Anybody?
Well, I was just looking for someone who was into EFT, and I happened to find one, and it's the practice owner of where I'm going to be starting. So mine kind of came together very easily and coincidentally. But I would look for someone, who maybe specializes in some of the areas that you want to go into, and if they're certified or of the same theoretical approach, to me that seemed to become a natural question to ask.
Yeah, I think I mentioned like last time I found someone who was going to be supportive kind of the path that I want to take. So like starting a private practice and as well as working within the nonprofit arena. And it's also someone who I had actually made my decision to come to Amberton on because they were a graduate of Amberton. So I've kind of been stalking them on LinkedIn for quite some time. And so then I just went and asked if they were accepting any supervisees. And so it's just a matter of finding that person that's going to be supportive, I think, in the path that you want your career to take.
Who is your supervisor, Dania?
Dr. Stacia Alexander.
Oh, okay.
Does supervision, like when you pick your person, when does it like start with
So
them?
yeah, so when you have your license, your associate license,
Okay.
that's when it starts. But you need to pick them because that's part of your application process. So some questions you would want to ask besides some of the ones that these guys brought up, which are great. If you're especially looking for someone that does a certain model of therapy, then that would be important for you for sure. The other things you would want to know are, like price and, how available are they? Like, are they, what's their supervision style? Are you looking for a certain style? Um, everyone has a kind of a style that which you can probably figure out as you talk to them too. Um, if you want, like you might want to ask, like, how long have they done, like, how long have they been in how long have they done supervision? I will say that uh, when you're thinking about supervisors, because I'm actually about to, after all these years, I'm about to start gathering my hours to be a supervisor. So I'm technically brand new as a supervisor, but I've been in the field for 15 years. So keeping in mind that your supervisor's already done probably, 5,000 hours of counseling, but maybe, 10 hours of supervision, which is a little bit different. So if that's important to you. But I think the big things to me, and some things you just don't know until you start either, is, is there a model that they are comfortable with? If you want to know that, Dania, I know for her, she was looking for someone that would help kind of coach her through like private practice and what that looks like. And so you can be specific, as specific as you want to be about whatever, you're looking for. Um, and most people will have information out there somewhere on social media that you can look up and look at. Those are probably the big things.
I have someone in mind. I mean, I know 4 people that have used her, 1
Mhm.
currently and 3 other ones that went through her. And I just really want someone that's going to be organized. And so
Yeah.
that I'm not going to have to be, I don't know, pushing to do
Mhm.
stuff. So, okay.
What do the people that have worked with her say?
Well, one of them who's supervising me for my hours right now, and she liked her a lot, and they just tell me she's kind of relaxed, not, and I'm like, what does that mean? Exactly. Um, but I know one of the people that used her is a go-getter and like has started a private practice. So, and I've seen that she gets like groups together, whoever she's supervising, which I kind of like that too, because then you kind of have other people that are kind of doing it, and they still get together even after they finished
Yep.
a long time ago. So, and she's in my city, so
Is she taking new people?
I don't know. That's what I'm gonna call and ask her.
Yeah. You can only have 8
Okay.
total, so yeah.
Dr. Bedard, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you actually have to have your license in hand? I know you have to apply for that, right? After your exam?
Your associate license,
Right.
right?
So you need to keep the third practicum going until you get that, or can you drop that after you've passed your exam?
So I know I'm going to be semantic here. It's the extended practicum because there is a third practicum, but that's only for MFT students.
Oh,
So,
extended practicum is
yeah.
what I signed up for. Okay.
Yeah. So the extended practicum, you can drop at any time if you get your license. Some people, like I just had a student drop it last week that
Well,
got
it
their
happens
license.
to be the drop date happens to be the same day I take my exam.
Okay.
So I was hoping to pass and then be able to drop it and not have to pay for that.
Well, if you're going to see clients anyway, you need to keep taking it. If you're not going to see clients at all, then it doesn't matter. You don't
So,
have to take it.
so you cannot, what happens if you don't get your license in the mail before the extended is over? Just stop seeing clients until you do?
That's what I would do.
Okay.
I would never see people. Yeah, I talked about this a couple classes ago. I would never see clients without some kind of umbrella protection, right?
Okay.
And that's what the extended practicum gives you.
So the exam isn't enough. You actually have to have applied and received your license.
Correct. Yeah, the exam has nothing to do with the extended
I was
practicum.
just hoping to save the $900.
Sure, I know. No, I get it. I get it. I know. I know. I know it's an expensive thing, but I mean,
It's necessary.
the thing that to me is like, if you're gonna, if you're gonna, if you're going to, there's 2 things to think about. Actually glad you brought this up. There's 2 things to think about. The first thing is never do anything that would lose your license. That's the first thing. The second thing is you're going to pay from now on, you're going to pay $1,000 a year just on licensing fees and CEUs and other things. You're probably going to pay that around that much every year now from now on. That's not even counting like right now for you guys, like paying you like supervision and things like that. So in terms of what you're going to pay, you know, you're going to pay from now on different things. But I totally understand the, not wanting to pay. I actually totally understand that. Totally get it.
So
Yeah.
how long does it take after you apply to actually get your license?
Usually I've heard 2 weeks, I've heard 4 weeks, I've heard 5 weeks. So it's probably somewhere around in there. I don't think it used to take 6 weeks. It used to take a while because you had to mail everything or fax or whatever. Everything's electronic now, so it's not taking as long. But I would think that now some of you have taken the exam and you're just waiting on your transcripts, and you're probably going to get your license pretty quick right after graduation versus, Renee, if you got all of your things together ready and then you take the exam, they're going to get the scores too. Now it does take them a little while to get the scores,
Okay.
but you can go ahead and send your application to kind
Okay.
of get it going. You can do that too. So does that help? Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are saying that they're finding out just by checking the site that they've been approved
Yeah.
versus getting like it's on the site before they're getting the emails.
Yeah. And if it's on the site, then you're good. That's the thing. But you got to keep checking the site, which I I always hesitate to say that, but since you brought it up, yes, you can check the site. You can always look to see if your license is active. You can always look there, and that link is through on the BHEC site too. You can find it. Someone's asking a question. Oh, Haley, yeah, you'll know your score after you take it. And then the testing center or the national they send the ECE score to the state, right? Am I saying that right? I believe that's what happens.
I will say though, if you take it at home online, about 30 minutes after you get done, they'll email you and tell you your results are ready to look to see.
Mhm.
But when you go on, it will show that you didn't even take a test for a few hours, because it kind of freaked me out a little bit, because I was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't even show
Oh yeah.
that I completed the exam, and it takes a few hours for it to show up.
Yeah. I know if you go to the center, I think Mark went. A couple of y'all have gone to like a testing center. Did you know right away if you passed?
Yes.
You did. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they hand you your score sheet right
Yeah.
there.
It's so nerve wracking.
Yeah.
I did a dance in the elevator.
I mean, I remember taking my LMFT exam because I studied for a week because I was in the middle of doing something else because I was about to go to my PhD program and I was like, I got to pass it. So I remember taking the exam, walking up there because there's all kinds of people in there taking all kinds of, GREs and whatever. And I walk up there and it was just one of the workers there. She just like hands it to me and I'm like waiting for like balloons to go, it's so anticlimactic. And 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 this is crazy, but didn't give me my score. I didn't know that LMFTs, you have to wait to get your score. So I had to wait 6 weeks to get my score. So 6 weeks later, all of us that took the exam were huddled around a phone and we all just there's a number, we just kept calling this number and we all were passing, but we had to wait 6 weeks. So she handed me this piece of paper and I'm in my head thinking I'm going to find out, but I didn't find out. But if you take the LPC, you find out right then. So I was so like for 6 weeks sitting there going, oh my gosh, what happens? Everything that goes through your head, that what happens if you don't pass or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think one of John that came and talked to us either the first or second class. I don't know if he talked about. I can't remember if he talked about this, but hit the power. Everything went down at his testing center, and he had to go back and take the exam. He had to start all over, take the exam again. He got like 2/3 through, and they lost everything. So that's pretty horrible. That would be hard. So anyway. So if you're taking the LMFT exam eventually, you have to wait. I don't think you have to wait 6 weeks now. I think it's quicker, but you still have to wait. The LPC, you get your results right then, which is really nice.
Sorry, one last clarification on the extended practicum. If you go that route, but you cannot say you're an LPC associate, right? You're
That's
still
correct. That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. You can't say you're anything until you actually have the license itself. Yes.
Okay.
That's like when you get your full licensure, right? You couldn't say I'm an LPC. You have to always have the associate tag to it. Just like now, when I start supervising, I'm not a supervisor. I'm a supervision candidate under the supervision of someone. right? That's the same thing. And that's because ethically, right? Remember in the ethics, you have to represent yourself to clients as what you are. Yeah, that's why that's there. That's what that's for. So good question though. Any other questions about any things we're talking about? These are good questions. Okay. Let me get over here.
I have one question. I feel like you
Yep.
told us this, but I wasn't paying good enough attention. The practicum documentation form that we send in, who did you say we get to sign that?
That the state form that you're talking about the state form.
Yes.
So you'll send that to Gina Termenstein,
Okay.
and then she will get the Dr. Paul Burton is our new dean of academic. What's he called? The academic services. He will sign it, and what that is saying is that you completed your practicum hours with,
Okay.
as an Amberton student.
Okay.
Where's that format? I missed that part.
It's a state form. It's just
Oh,
one
okay. All right.
page.
Okay, that one.
Yeah, it's just a one page form.
If you go on the site, the Texas Behavioral Health site, they have I just printed it off so I could check off everything that,
And
because
you
it
have to
gets
fill it
where,
out. You need to fill it out yourself. Fill it all
right.
out. If you don't fill it out, she will not sign it. She'll
Yeah.
send it back to you. Yeah.
But there's a whole list of things that we have to do. And so, because there's the supervisor agreement, jurisprudence exam, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And Dr. Butter, you want last practicums hours and this practicum hours?
I want every hour
right?
you've done. I want all the
Okay.
hours. Yep. All the hours. Yep.
Okay.
You could be really nice and add them all up for me. That'd be awesome. I would love it. That would be helpful. Michelle's trying to talk.
Sorry, Dr. Bedard, do you have a form that you want those on? Do you want the form we got from Dr. Johnson or the state form or either?
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. I
Okay.
think Amberton has like a little sheet that you can keep it on. Some people do a spreadsheet. It doesn't matter to me.
All right.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. In the handbook, all the forms are in the handbook. You can use that if you want. Whatever you've been using is fine. I will say, as you begin to collect your 3,000 hours, it would be important to have something to do that on. Now there's apps you can find too, and I just did mine on a spreadsheet. I still got it actually. I would do something, whatever works for you, but you need to keep those hours organized for sure for yourself. And the reason is because it's one thing to keep track of 300 hours. It's a total different animal to keep track of 3,000 hours because you could get down to, within 20 hours, let's say, and you want to know, like, I only have 20 hours left. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just kind of want to know because around halfway through, you start, I don't know, if you're like me, you start looking at it every week. You're like, okay, I need to do this and this. And I had a really cool supervisor at the end that was like, hey, you only have 20 hours left. Go ahead and apply because you're going to get it. I knew I was going to get it by the time I turned everything in. But that was in the old days when you had to mail everything in and fax stuff in and all that stuff. So, but yeah, you need to have a way to keep track of your hours. And what I would do is every week, sometimes I would do it more than every week, but for sure every week, I would kind of be keeping track. Like every session, I would kind of I would know, hey, I would mark this session. And then once a week or twice a week, I would go into my spreadsheet and make sure I had it updated. So when I started a new week, I knew where I was all the time. And I did everything, supervision hours, direct contact, and I had to do relationship too. So 2 columns for that. And then like any kind of non-direct hours, like any of the admin or case notes, or if I took a class or whatever, I noted all of those things. But I just, you have to have a way to kind of keep those things organized. So spreadsheets are just easy, just because that's kind of what they're meant for to do. But you definitely want to have a way to do it and just keep track of it. You don't want to be searching around at the end. They don't really ask for you to turn that in, but they want to know that you know that you finished. So you need to have a way to say, hey, here's how I did it. So anyway, any other questions about any of these things?
And again, your method that you use for accounting for those hours, as long as it's signed off by your supervisor, that's
it.
that's legitimate enough.
That's it. Because that's how they know that you did it, because the supervisor signed off on it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So your supervisor will be also keeping track.
Mm-hmm.
They'll usually have you turn in something. You know, there's a way that they'll have you turn something into. It depends. Every supervisor is a little different, and so how they do it. But yeah, they're going to make sure that you keep, you know, that you're keeping track as well. So it just kind of depends on the supervisor.
Okay. So there's no state website that you're logging in with a user tracking it there.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. There's no, everything, you're doing it on your own.
Okay.
That's what's great about Google Sheets, because you can share it. Because like my current supervisor, I've shared it with her so she can look on there.
Yep.
While I'm doing it.
Yeah. Anything that you can share is great. You know, the one thing that you want to be careful of, you can't share PHI, patient health information. So you have to be careful of stuff like that when you're sharing across platforms. You have to be careful of things like that. But in terms of like your hours, you're just writing down hours. You just can't write down, names and things. I actually had a separate way of tracking my insurance payments but I was a separate thing that I had separate for me, and I actually had it password protected that only I could open it. I had a spreadsheet of when I saw clients and what insurance provider and what the insurance paid and what the co-payment was, and if I was missing anything. I actually kept track of that too. So things like that you wouldn't be able to put out on Google Sheets, but in terms of your hours, you should be fine. That's the great thing about the Google platform, is there's a lot of ways to share different things, which I think is good. Would be great if we had that, but that takes someone a lot of time and effort to set up for everybody. Anyway, you definitely want to have a way to keep track, keep things organized. So that's good. Any other questions? Because I do want to talk about one thing for sure today, and that's we can't, like last time I talked a lot about different private practice type information. I want to talk about like continuing education, which is going to become important because you have to do continuing education credits from now. As long as you have your license, you're always going to have to do them. And what the interesting thing, and we talked about this a little bit last time. I think Mark asked about certifications. So I actually started thinking about that a little bit later. And the interesting thing about certifications is now there's a ton of them. Like you can be certified, almost anything you want. And some of them are like certifications in a modality too, like EFT or IFS or DBT. Like you can spend, a few $1,000s, but you would go through a pretty intensive training program and become certified in whatever that modality is. And it would be theoretical, but it would also be practical. It'd also be like a lot of times you have to do some kind of supervision in that modality to get the full certification. For example, the EFT certification, which they're starting one here. There's a pretty, Mark, just for your info, there's a pretty healthy DFW MFT EFT group. They got all kinds of information that you could get emails about. They do trainings all the time. So for different programs like the EFT one specifically, it's actually very intense. There's levels. There's a level 1 and level 2, and then you do a practicum internship basically. It's fairly expensive, but at the end of it, basically you're pretty proficient in EFT. And so any of those things that you do can also count towards your CEUs as well, which is nice because you're going to spend a lot of time. At the same time, you always have to do ethics CEUs. You have to do some type of cultural competency type CEUs. And then, of course, well, not just Texas, but sex trafficking or like all of those types of courses, you have to do things for those too. And that every state's doing this now. I'm actually part of I have a license in Washington, and they have a specific suicidal, what do they call it? It's basically crisis, but it mainly focuses on like suicidal ideation. And I have to take that once every 2 years. So in different states might have different things to take. If you can find organization, like if you can find, like I'm part of TAMFT, and a lot of times they'll do like, a CEU class for, $25 versus if you pay $100 for something. You can find things like that. But you want to do, I think it's helpful to try to get CEUs in areas that you're interested in, because that will be helpful for you. And then there's some that you might just take because it sounds interesting. I mean, sometimes, to be honest with you, they're hit or miss. I've taken some that I thought this might be really cool, and then ended up being really kind of not very good, and that's not good. But there's some that you can take, especially if you're interested in certain models of therapy, or if you're interested in certain populations, like working with certain populations, that would be good. I've taken CEU trainings in working with folks from Asian populations, because I was working or have worked with several folks in that category, and so there's things like that. If you know that you're going to try to mainly work with couples, there's tons of trainings like working with high conflict couples, or helping people after affairs, or I mean, in everything you can kind of imagine, there's things like that. You can get pretty granular with the CEUs that you would like to take. The other thing that I think is helpful, and I don't get to do this as much now because I'm online. I did a lot of CEUs with other peers, like friends of mine. We would go and do them because there are now more in-person CEU trainings now. Of course, you can do them online. There's obviously tons of videos now that you can do CEUs and gather your hours doing that. But it's also fun to do it with people that your peers. I think that can be really helpful too. So it's good to me, it's good to kind of plan that out. The other thing is when you look at like big events, like I try to go to the TAMFT conference every year, and you can get, like 25 CEUs just at the conference, like at one shot. Texas Counseling Association has a big one every year. You can get a ton there too. I mean, there's different ones that you can get your CEUs at. Those are also fun, I think, to go to network with people. That's a good thing to do as well. And then there's national conferences too that you can go to if you want to travel and go to those. So there's lots of ways to get CEUs now, which is really great. I think that's something to kind of think about and think through. But if you're going to get a certification, you definitely want to get my personal thought about it is you might want to do a little bit of therapy in that area, like practice that a little bit before you get certified in it. Just to make sure, because you're going to spend quite a bit of money and time being certified, and you want to make sure it's something that really fits with you. So I kind of thought about that after our last class, and I thought I would talk about that a little bit today. Does that make sense, hopefully?
Yes. You also mentioned books, the type of books that if we're going to like read up on certain
Yeah.
topics, you
Yeah.
said certain type of books we should get.
Yeah,
Can you talk about that a little bit more?
I can. So these bottom three shelves are all therapy and like textbooks and like other writings, like like that's my EFT book, and there's a workbook that goes with it, or a case book. So this is the textbook. This is the Gottman Marriage Clinic book. Like this is, I mean, these things are like, you know, massive. And then there's other things too, like here's the DBT textbook. I talked about motivational interviewing. This is the narrative therapy book. It just kind of depends on what you want to, you know, kind of what you want to get into. There's another one. This is all my attachment. I got a whole thing on attachment. So you can find, my suggestion is always like go to the person that created the model, you know, the person that did the initial research, and it needs to be, to me, it needs to be evidence-based. Like they should have researched it and have some evidence behind like its effectiveness. For example, in EFT, and I happen to be an EFT therapist, so I can talk about it too, but EFT's got a ton of research behind it now that on change. So does the Gottman method. I mean, Gottman and John and Julie Gottman have been doing research for almost 40 years on couples. But then in terms of CBT, there are actually multiple people that have written about that, because CBT's is the most prevalent, has been around the longest, other than psychoanalysis. It's been around the longest, and that has also the most coverage. I tend to, now this is a personal thing for me. I think it more fits my style. I tend to kind of navigate towards like postmodern, what's called postmodern approaches, where it's a lot less therapist directive or clinically directive versus the older models, like modern models. CBT is actually one of them that's very direct, like, you know, the therapist is directive, like you do this and this and this, versus, you know, more question oriented. You ask questions in both, but one of them is a little bit more directive. And the original models, psychoanalytics, CBT, those were also seen in modern terms as, you know, the counselor's the expert, and then there's the client. And postmodern kind of flips it around a bit and says, hey, the counselor still has expertise, but the client's the expert in their life. And so you allow them to talk about their life more than just tell them, you know, kind of what to do. And there's some nuances there, but I tend to go more towards the kind of postmodern approaches, which is why I've got like narrative therapy. Probably the most postmodern is what does she even call it now? I think she changed the name of it. I've got a friend that practices this conversational language. It's basically where you have conversations with people. This one's, now if you don't like, anyway, this model of therapy is the most postmodern therapy you could ever be around, because it's basically having conversations in a way that help people's problems start to dissolve, which sounds really foo-foo and new agey, but it works. I've got a good friend of mine that uses this. He's very good at it. You can get certified in this too. This lady's from Galveston, I believe, Harleen Anderson. I've heard her speak. She's great. And now on YouTube, you can watch people. Like you can watch people that like develop therapies. You can watch them do therapy. And they're master clinicians. That's a great thing too. You know, I would recommend doing that. I do that still, and watching people. And I'm just, you know, the interesting thing is there's lots of models now out there that you can find. I even have clients ask now, hey, do you know blah 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 model, or you know, using this kind of therapy? And some of them I don't even know, like I haven't heard of. And I'm like, is that a real? Like I have to look it up, see, you know, make sure it's real, or someone just made something up because I don't know sometimes. But in terms of models, you just, if you can get to a lot, most of the time how it's developed is someone came out of a certain theory and they started doing therapy based on that theory, and the more they did it, started kind of becoming more structured, and then they started researching the structure of it and seeing if it actually did what they thought it was doing in terms of change, and kind of measuring the outcomes, and then they could have evidence behind it, and then they formed a model of therapy, and they would usually write a paper about it first, and then they always would write a book, and most of the time it's a textbook kind of thing. Now Sue Johnson's written other books that are not textbooks, that are like layman type books that I've actually used with clients too. So the great thing about EFT too is Sue was really good at developing it, but she was also really good at developing other people that were good at developing it. So now she's got kind of like apostles of her style all over the place, which is really nice. The same thing happened in attachment theory. Bowlby was really good, and then Ainsworth came out of that, and then there's people that have come from those folks. Um, there's one model that I actually hear now. I actually had a few clients recently ask me about it, and that's IFS, internal family systems, which is I might have loaned this book out. I'm not sure. I think I did. Yeah, I think I loaned it out. I don't have it here. Richard Schwartz is the developer. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Yeah, you can get trained on this too. IFS is internal family systems. And so basically, I'll give you like the 50,000 foot view of this. It's that mentally speaking, we can think of a problem or an issue in parts. For example, if you are struggling with something, you're not that whole thing. You're just part of you is struggling with it. Maybe other parts aren't struggling with that particular thing, but each part can be labeled in a way, and those parts actually interfere sometimes with kind of the leadership part that kind of wants to take care of the issue and move forward. But that part a lot of times gets covered over by other parts. And so basically, I have used this a lot in trauma work, excuse me, and other things. If you think about like in anxiety work, for example, you know, winter times you're not anxious. Well, I'm not anxious when this, and this. That means the certain there's certain times when that's not happening, which means certain parts are, you know, maybe more in charge, let's say, of what's going on around you. And so what's good about it is a lot of times people will resonate with parts language. Um, I mentioned the one of the therapy centers that I mentioned earlier, the Steady Heart Counseling. Brittany Brummett is a colleague of mine. She's a good friend. She uses IFS exclusively. She's very good at it. But anyway, you can read the great thing about these models is you don't have to get certified in them. You can read about them and learn about them and learn the interventions that come with them and how they're used. And there's plenty of articles that you would be able to find about them too. So that won't, you can do that. I mean, even DBT now, which is still fairly newish, there's lots of great resources on with DBT now, which is good. And so it really just kind of depends on what directions you want to go. But I just would say, if you have an interest in an area or a model or a style, just, try to do trainings around that to get more information. Because 9 times out of 10, the person doing the training is also, really good at that model or that style. So they would know a lot about it. And that would be very, very helpful. And so that's what again, I was thinking about this after our class, and I just wanted to talk about it directly because I think it's helpful to think about, like, as we think about next steps, and this is definitely a next step. You're gonna be doing CEUs from now on while you're licensed, and so just kind of thinking through the ones that you want to do are really important. Even ethics. You can be specific on certain ethics. Like I do most of my ethics training in the virtual therapy world. Like if there's changes, in ethics or laws, or like I try to kind of stay on top of that. So I'll do a lot of my ethics training in that world. So if you work a lot, there's ethics training on like record keeping now, or being subpoenaed by court. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can find that'll be really helpful to know. Um, uh, and so we have to do 6 hours of ethics every 2 years anyway. So it's really, you can be specific with that too. Amberton is going to offer CEU trainings probably fairly soon too. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm pretty sure we're gonna start doing that in person too, I think.
Do you know if, like, as a school counselor, we do a lot of different compliance trainings, like through whatever region you're in? Would any of those cross over and count?
You would have to ask them. A lot of times when you do a CEU training, it's just kind of like the fine print. You have to read what
Mm-hmm.
organizations accept it and what don't. That's what you would have to know.
Okay. Because I
And
know, like, TCA, when you go, because we
yeah,
go to that,
yep,
I mean,
yep.
there's like a part underneath there that you can do for
That's
that.
that's what it'll tell you there. But on
Okay.
the board, on the BHEC site, you should be able to find information on what the board accepts, the Texas board accepts. You should
Okay.
be able to find that. And now I can only speak for the LMFT side. When I've had questions like I'm wondering, I actually email them or call them and they can tell you that too.
Okay.
A
Because I
lot
know,
of times if the psychology world accepts it, most of the time it's okay, but you do have to find out.
right. So, like, this year, we had to do trafficking,
Yep.
like, as a compliance training. I did it last year just because I was
Yep.
interested in it. And
Yep.
I went ahead and did it because they pump out, Region
Yep.
10 pumps
Yep.
out like tons.
Yep.
And I just went ahead and watched it just because
Yep.
there's that suicide at risk
Yep.
and child
Yep.
abuse stuff they do every year.
And I would think those would all count. I would think
Okay.
so, because it's not different training. It's the same
Right.
training. It's just in a different platform,
Right.
So I would think that would count. But you can find out the person leading the training. They should give you information on
Okay.
which board accepts, which part. And it should tell you how many hours you
Right.
receive too. Yeah.
We always get a certificate
Yep.
of how many. And so
Yeah.
I
Yep.
definitely would, if people on here haven't gone to TCA, I would become a member and go, because as a school counselor, I kind of quit going because what I found was all the things that had to do with school counseling, I was kind of like
Yeah,
not as interested. And then I was going to the LPC side and I was
right,
like, well, I can't do that in the school.
right.
So, but as a LPC, I would definitely go to TCA.
Yeah, TCA is good. It's a really good conference. They do a good job. And I'm an MFT and I'm a part of TCA. So I think it's, you can get a lot of good stuff. Um, some of the sites that I use for training, PESI, PESI, they're really good. And then I've got a friend that showed me this one. I'll put it on here. It's mentalhealthce.com. I'll put it on the, this has actually listed by state what they take, by topic. You can get group discounts by code. There's some that if you do like 3 trainings with them, you get X amount % off. That's a really good place to go to find CE credits. There's probably other ones out there like this, but this one's pretty good. So PESI is a good place. This mentalhealthce.com is a good place. The Zur Institute is a good place as well. They actually do a lot of I'll put this on here too. They do a lot of, they used to do a lot more mainly virtual things, but they do a lot of everything now. Let me put this on here for you guys to see. This is a good place to go. Like right now, they're doing a virtual EMDR certificate training for 50 now. They got part 1 and 2, you can get 30 hours. ACT and acceptance and commitment therapy is a big, that's kind of more in the mindfulness area. That's a great model to learn, I think. Anyway, I mean, there's lots. These are just things that you're gonna kind of explore and discover. Now you have more time to do that. You didn't have a lot of time in your academic life to do that. You're gonna have a little bit more time now. Is this helpful? Hopefully this is
Very helpful.
good information.
And the documentation requirements, you send them a copy of your certificate, or there's a accreditation number on your receipt or something, or how do you do that?
You tell them that you did it, and they can audit you at any time. The state can audit you at any time.
Okay.
Now, Arizona, I had to actually document all of my training, every single hour I had to put in for Arizona. But any state, if you're, no matter where, so in Texas, they can audit you at any point. So you want to have the documentation, but there's not like a clearinghouse that they go, put this all in here and making sure, and we track it. They don't do that right now. Now they might do that eventually, but right now they don't. They just kind of take your word for it. But you want to have your documentation for it.
So we can also, all these type of trainings is considered indirect hours too. So
Correct. That's
as
correct.
either right now or as an associate, we could be counting those.
Correct. You can count man, there's so many things you can count as indirect. Indirect, you won't have any trouble getting those, because almost everything you do is indirect.
Would a good practice, like my thought is I'm going to look kind of at my 300 hours and kind of see how I did monthly, and that'll help me know with my 3,000 hours is like how
So
long it'll take
yeah,
me.
yeah, that's a good question. You can do that. There's probably a couple of different things you can do. You can do it that way. You can, so I was super anal about this. So I went about it as like really strategically, like so I broke it down. I got really granular. So I knew I did it by, we, like by week, I'm gonna make all these numbers up. Every week I want to have 20 hours or 30 or whatever it was. So that meant if, 5 days, I only worked 5 days. I didn't work on Saturdays. So, that meant I need to have 4 hours, 4 sessions every day on average, right? I need to have 4 hours, or whatever that was, 6 sessions, whatever it is. You can do it that way. You can do it from the standpoint of like, okay, I know to be a good therapist, I can do 5 sessions in a day and I'm okay, or I can do 7, or I can do 3, whatever. So this is the opposite of what I was talking about. I to be good and do a good job, I can do X amount of sessions per day, and then that turns into I can do 15 in a week or whatever it is. And then you would say, if I do that 4 weeks out of a month, and 4 times whatever that is, that gives me my number I'm shooting at, right? And then I get, like I said, I was real granular. I would say, here's my number and here's my actual, and I would track that. And for me, it became easier, like like I was working out a muscle and I could see more and more people as I went because I got better at it. So I can see 35 people in a week now. It's not, I could probably see 45. I just don't do that. I don't want to do that. I could probably do that if I needed to. But I got up to where I could see 35 or 40 with no problem. It was easy. But I just do other things now, so I don't have to do that.
How long are your sessions?
So sessions are between 50 and 60 minutes. Usually 55 minutes is what I shoot for, roughly. It goes by so fast.
Okay, because the private practice that I was working with, it was 45
Yeah.
minutes.
So 40, you can do 45-minute sessions. You can do 30-minute sessions. You can do you can do it however you want. My EAP sessions are 38. This is so weird. 38 to 42. That's what insurance pays for. 38 to 45. Sorry. It's weird.
Yeah, that's
So,
interesting.
yeah, no,
Yeah, 'cause at school, my sessions are like 30
yeah.
because it's different. I mean,
Yeah.
they're kids. And that's
Yeah.
another thing. I mean, it depends on the age
Yep.
to how long. And I definitely want to work with kids. So
Yeah.
an hour is too long.
Yeah. But when I work with couples, it's mostly an hour. And I started doing 90-minute sessions with couples too, because you just don't have time. You just run out of time. And I have plenty of couples that like 90 minutes. And then I actually also offer intensive where I'll do um, uh, like in a weekend, let's say, I would do like Friday and Saturday, I might do like 8 and 8. And that's basically 16 weeks of therapy in 2 days, roughly. And I have people that do that too. Um, I don't do that as much now because because I'm doing other things. But there's you can be as creative as you want. Whatever your wheelhouse is. My wheelhouse is I like to jump right in and start immediately. Let's work now. Some people are like, let's get to know each other a little bit more. Let's kind of ask more questions it just kind of depends on what your style and what you're comfortable with and what you want to do and how you want to do it. And my style doesn't fit with every client, and that's okay too. I can refer people to people that are, depending on what they're looking for. And so, all of these things you're going to figure out now, which is why you have 3,000 hours to figure it out. That's one of the reasons you need time to figure this out and to know kind of how to work with people. The best way you can do it, that's what matters. So, yeah. Any other questions about any of these things? Excuse me. The only other thing I was going to talk about, I didn't get to this last time. I don't think this is actually as big a deal as it used to be. Most places have some type of practice management software they use. I use Simple Practice. There's lots of other ones out there that people use. Wherever you go and work, most of the time you'll use whatever they use or whatever things they've put together. Um, it's just important that helps you keep organized. All of the good practice management systems are cloud based and also HIPAA compliant and keep things encrypted that you keep. Like now I've got my files on the cloud versus I've got two filing cabinets of files over here in my office. Like half of them I probably need to get rid of because I've had some of these for 10 years. I should probably get rid of them at this point. Versus like with Simple Practice, I've got all my things on the cloud that I can keep, and which is awesome to have. Simple Practice actually now has been working with a scheduling software system, and I'm now getting clients through Simple Practice through United Health, which is kind of interesting. There's a few bugs with it because I've had clients pop up that I didn't know I was supposed to have that called me during when I was supposed to have a session. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that. So there's a few bugs with it, but it's it's actually pretty cool. And then inside Simple Practice, you can bill and they'll run insurance for you. Now everything costs; they charge you for that, but you can you pay a monthly fee usually for the management software system, and you get XYZ based on what you pay. I think I pay $70 a month or 65 or something like that, which is probably too much for me because it's only me. I probably don't use everything that they have.
That's what the
Um,
private practice I work with uses. I
Simple
noticed you
Practice.
said that
Yeah,
earlier in another.
yeah,
Mine
yeah.
too.
They're good. It's a good system to use. Um, if anybody uses it, if you were like say I referred you to them, I'll get $100 and you'll get $100. Like we could technically all like refer each other and get money from them. They do that too. I did that with some friends. I've done that with a few colleagues. I think we talked. I feel like Michelle might have asked this last time. I think I talked about this, but there are other third-party insurance clearinghouses now. Like Headway is one. Um, I just got an email from another one. Like a salesperson for that place has emailed me like 5 times in 2 weeks. That one's called Alma, I believe. Um, those are the only two I know of that are legit. I'm sure there might be other ones, but basically they offer enhanced insurance rates for you, um, and you can get clients that way. Um, and then virtually speaking, there are virtual uh, companies like BetterHelp is one, those type places that offer that you can work for as a contracted therapist. There's actually other even private practices now that are doing that, like contracting people virtually. Like I actually talked to a place in San Antonio. This is like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. Talked to a place in San Antonio that was hiring in Texas, and they did virtual, and they wanted people in the DFW area. So I mean, those things are out there now. Most of those places you would have to have your full license to do, but that's just something that's happening now more and more. Um, I don't know that that's not gonna. I don't know that that's gonna take over for in-person therapy per se, but it's just another avenue to see clients. It basically, the one thing that COVID did accelerate is virtual therapy. It definitely accelerated that. It was already kind of happening anyway, but it really like kind of forced us, like what we're doing now, basically. We never would have done this before COVID. We would be meeting in a class every Thursday night in Garland or Frisco, you know. And so it's definitely pushed through the virtual process a little bit more, which I think is good. You can see more people. Um, you can see them anywhere. They can be in their car, their closet, their living room, their office, wherever. I've seen people in all kinds of spaces. I've had a few, more than one, a few clients that created like spaces in their closet to go which was kind of cool. And it was like they would have little pictures and stuff like a lot of them were really cramped, but they felt safe there and comfortable, and they could go and we could have a session. It was actually a really neat thing. I met with people in their bathrooms. I mean, wherever. It's pretty interesting. I can't think of anything. Those are the big things I wanted to talk about today. I was kind of thinking about some of this after our last class. And I think I mentioned this last time too. You can do more, even more CEU or seminars on private practice now. There's more of those out there. Those are plentiful and everywhere, basically. So, I mean, there's lots of different avenues to get information now that we just didn't have before that we have now. Any questions about any of these things, or any questions about anything? It could be anything.
Are there any places that will hire someone before they get their license in the mail?
Like before they're an associate, you mean?
Yeah, so like now when I pass my exam and I've done all of the other things, but I don't yet have the document in hand, is it likely anybody will hire me?
Yeah, I'm sure there's people here that have already got positions without that. Yeah,
Okay,
that happens all the time.
okay.
Yeah. And there's some uh practices that like having associates too. Yeah. That's really up to the practice more than anything, but there's nothing wrong. There's nothing holding you back from finding a position right now. There's nothing that should stop you. Yeah. If that position also has supervision, that's even like, that's awesome. You know, that'd be awesome to find that. But yeah, there should be nothing stopping you. You guys are going to enter this phase now of hustle. You're going to have to hustle to get your hours, to stay on top of things. If you want to try something new, I mean, it's all up to you. Everything you are in terms of like self-starting. I'm feeling more and more this way. Like it's almost like we are all not just clinicians, but like entrepreneurs to a certain extent too. Not just business wise, but just like you have to be creative and innovative, I think, in some ways. And that's why some people are great by themselves. They can do that on their own individually. But I think it also helps when you're with people that are like that, like think that way too. That helps you too, gives you some synergy with other people. So like like joining a practice of people that are kind of all like that, that helps you too. Because really you can, you know, um, I think everyone's just going to have to start. You got to hustle to get, you know, you can't sit back and hope for the best. You got to get, you know, you're going to have to get out there and push to get your hours and to find a good place. And if you don't like the practice you're in, go find another practice. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Now, I hope you don't. I hope you love where you're at. I hope that works great. That'd be awesome. If you found a place, you stay there, get your hours, that's awesome. But if you don't, go somewhere else. That's okay. There's a lot of places out there now. A lot of places. I would encourage all of you to kind of keep, you know, network with each other, like keep in touch with each other. I think it really helps too. So I know there's a Facebook group, there used to be, for all the Amberton students, and there's alumni on there too. You can find information. Just make sure the information that is talked about is correct. Sometimes some of the information is not super helpful, but I think overall it's a very helpful. It can be a very helpful group too, I think. So I would I would just think about it in terms of like, I'm an entrepreneur now. I'm going to have to kind of get out there and make things happen for myself. Because no one's going to get the hours but you, right? Like you're the ones that they're going to have to get the hours. So, yeah. Okay. I want to meet one more time. Because I got thrown off a little bit here a couple of weeks ago. I'd like to meet. Today's the 3rd. I'd like to meet on the 17th. That'd be the last time we would meet. Either the. Well, let me ask this question. Does anybody have a preference over if we met next week or the week after? Does it matter to anybody? I mean, not everybody has to be here. I'm just wondering. I'm thinking maybe we meet next week on the 10th. I want to meet either on the 10th or 17th. And so I think let's meet on the 10th. That'll be our last class. And that'll be for like an hour. There's something I do with everybody the last class, like an activity, kind of a milestone achievement activity that we'll do then. And obviously any questions, that you have, we can answer. And so let's plan on meeting next Saturday at 9, and it'll be like an hour and a half time. And if you have questions between then, obviously you can shoot me a message. Any other questions about anything else? This is your shot. Okay, now go mow the yard. Haley, good luck getting sleep. Just go do whatever you're going to do on this weekend, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you.
You.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks, Dr. Bedard.